that violates the Constitution in many ways, but the most obvious way is that it violates the First Amendment. The state, under our Constitution, cannot suppress your speech because of what you're saying.
Well, we know that he's unleashed a whirlwind of executive orders, what they call EOs, on everything from tariffs to borders, defunding government departments. But some critics are now saying, or have been saying for some time actually, that he is overstepping his powers. He is harming the United States Constitution. Let's talk to one of them now. Joining me is Robert Post, the Sterling Professor of Law at Yale Law School. Robert, 3 weeks into the new term, Vice President J.D. Vance wrote on X, judges are not allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Isn't that just a statement of democratic legitimacy?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me on the show. It feels a little bit in the United States the way it feels on the Iberian Peninsula now. It's kind of a legal blackout. J.D. Vance did say that. He is a graduate of the Yale Law School, and it's embarrassing that he would say such a thing because, of course, under our Constitution, the primary duty of the executive is to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And it is the province of the judiciary, as we have believed since the case of Marbury versus Madison in 1803, it is the province of the judiciary to say what the law is.
But presumably, the administration's point of view is that unless and until somebody tells them that what they're doing is actually unlawful, their job is also, or principally actually, to fulfill the mandate. And you can say lots of things about Donald Trump, and most people do. One thing you can't say is that he's not doing what he promised.
Well, actually, you can say that. He promised to end the war in the Ukraine on his first day of office, and he hasn't fulfilled that promise. But he is being very vigorous. He's implementing
But my point is, we were warned. I mean,
we were warned. He was elected to do this. But that the majority wishes to disobey the Constitution doesn't give a reason to disobey the Constitution. In fact, the Constitution is there to restrict the voice of the majority. And in this, we differ from the UK, which, of course, doesn't have a written constitution and doesn't use judges to restrain the decisions of Parliament. But we do use judges to do exactly that.
Well, give us an example of a thing that he has done or one of his EOs that has, from your point of view, been in some way unlawful.
Well, a good example is he has issued several EOs against law firms. And in these executive orders, he has said that members of the law firm cannot enter federal courthouses, that the clients of the law firms will have to disclose their relationship with those law firms, and that the federal government will not do business with the law firms, all on account of the fact that the law firms have in their employ certain lawyers who have in the past opposed Donald Trump. Now, that violates the Constitution in many ways, but the most obvious way is that it violates the First Amendment. The state, under our Constitution, cannot suppress your speech because of what you're saying. So the law firm was taking a position in public affairs. It was, say, opposing Donald Trump's January 6th operations. And now the federal government was going to oppose it, was going to destroy it economically because of the political position taken by the lawyers in the firm. That is absolutely forbidden by our First Amendment. The Supreme Court affirmed that just last term. And that's a plain example of Trump exceeding his constitutional obligations.
Some of the biggest clashes have been over the immigration issue, the issue of deporting people to El Salvador and so on and so forth. What's going to happen about all of that? This is going to be dragged out for years, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So that's happening on several fronts. most important front is that he's invoking a law that's more than 200 years old, the Enemies Alien Act, and he is saying we are at war. He's literally saying we are at war with Venezuela, even though no war has been declared. And under his war powers, he is deporting people from Venezuela that he believes are part of a Venezuelan gang. Even if it were true that we were at war with Venezuela, which it isn't, and even if it were true that those he is deporting were members of this gang, that would have to be established at a hearing. Everyone in the United States is entitled to something we call due process of law. You in the UK call it principles of natural justice. That is to say, you have a right to have the charges against you stated. You have a right to have a defense against those charges. I'm not a member of the gang. You could prove it, perhaps, before an adverse legal action like deportation, much less deportation to a gulag in El Salvador, takes account.
It's worth saying, Robert, that you won't know this, but I wouldn't want us to be presented as a paragon of virtue here, since our government has this morning announced that it would like to consider removing jury trials for a particular class of defendant, and that's no doubt going to run into some of the same debate. But specifically, if I may just finally ask you this, the problem that people who oppose Mr. Trump, like yourself, are going to face is that there are these three branches of government, the executive, judiciary, and Congress. And right now, Congress is in Republican Party's control. I think 6 of the 9 Supreme Court judges have either been appointed or clearly in support of Mr. Trump's view about the Constitution, and Mr. Trump essentially has centralized power within the White House. This is going to be a very hard one for you to win, isn't it?
Well, it's quite interesting because much of what Trump does is in violation of laws passed by Congress. And precisely because the Republicans control both houses of Congress at the present time, they control the House of Representatives and the Senate, you would think that it would be easy for Trump just to go to Congress and have the law changed and act in a legal way. But he hasn't done that. That's very curious. So we have 3 branches of government, and our theory is that Congress states what the law is. Congress makes the law, and the executive enforces the law, and judges interpret the application of the law and interpret the meaning of law. And Trump has decided that as president, he wants all 3 functions. And that's the basis of the crisis here. He is asserting a theory of executive power, which wildly exceeds any previous interpretation of the limits of executive power.
Robert, thank you so much for your time and for that really clear explanation of where we stand in respect of the Constitution of the United States. That is Robert Post from the Yale Law School.